I want to cover some hot takes I have, mainly because I think that they may be a little bit controversial, but I know it's kind of the point of a hot take. And I'm not the first person to be doing this, but I decided why not? I chose like 6 different hot takes I have on different pieces of Star Wars media, ranging from shows, movies, video games, stuff like that. I'm trying to make all of them at least somewhat different. I'm not talking about the same movie or sets of movies, you know what I mean? So the first hot take that I have is Mandalorian. Now, the hot take is that I don't think Mandalorian is a special show, or what people claim to be this 1 in a million, like, oh my god, perfect show. It's a good show, but it's nothing special. I think it's overrated. I think it's the word to say, because everyone's talking about how perfect this show is, how everything's just perfect. It saves Star Wars. It's like this, oh my god, perfect show, but like, it's not perfect. I don't really see the specialty in it, really. It's just a good show. So I don't really know why people are claiming it to be that way. Maybe I'm missing something. The second hot take I have is Rose Tico, the character, is way overhated. I know in The Last Jedi, Rose is not a good character, but does she really deserve all the hate? Because people go out of their way to not only harass the character and say how terrible she is, but also the actress, and people have gone way too far. And that's what I'm talking about, the over-hatred of the character, how Rose Tico single-handedly ruined The Last Jedi. She ruined the sequel trilogy. She ruined Star Wars. No. People are overreacting. There's way more factors. I think people are realizing this now. But there's still a lot of people who think that Rose Tico is like this, it's like the devil reincarnated, but it's not. She's a bad character, but she isn't like the worst thing ever in the movie. I didn't think that she was that bad. When I first watched it, I remember I was like, I didn't really think much of Rose. I was like, oh, whatever. Now, there is another character that I think you should hate, which is Admiral Holdo from the same film. She should deserve all the hate, not Rose, but because Rose has more screen time, people hate her more. The third hot take I have is the sequel trilogy itself is a good, isolated trilogy. And what I mean is, looking at the trilogy, it's not that bad when you take out everything else that Star Wars has. Just those 3 films, just that's it. That they're fine as they are. They're actually good. The trilogy's about, being, finding a new leaf, you could say, finding identity. But to me, it's just a good trilogy by itself. That's it. I get it. People hate the sequel trilogy, but to me, it's fine as it is. And to add more to that, if the sequel trilogy, like just the stories, the characters, just everything, if you remove everything Star Wars out of that trilogy, and just have it be just not Star Wars or something else entirely, people wouldn't have a problem with it. They'll say, oh yes, it's a fine trilogy, good trilogy even, but because it's related to Star Wars and didn't really cover a lot of stuff from Star Wars from the other 6 films, people have a problem with it, but by itself, isolated, it's a good trilogy. My fourth hot take is if Rogue One came out after The Last Jedi, fans would hate it and forget it existed. So the reason why I chose this one is because when Solo came out, it bombed at the box office. People did not go see it. They didn't like it and forgot about it. And that's because it came after The Last Jedi. Like, it came out in May, a couple months after The Last Jedi came out. So because of that, people didn't like that. And they're protesting stuff, that type of stuff. And over the years, the film became very underrated and like a hidden gem. Now, it's not a perfect film, but it has its moments. But those were overlooked because it came after Last Jedi. I think the Rogue One would have had the same fate if that came after Last Jedi like Solo did. My explanation is because since people did not like The Last Jedi, why would they go and see the next film? The Rogue One, the reputation that it has, if it came out after The Last Jedi, people would have hated it and forgotten about it until years later, where the heat settles down, people went and saw the film again on like Disney Plus or whatever. But if Solo came out after The Force Awakens, that would have been praised. I actually do believe that, because, it's just fans didn't like The Last Jedi, so they took their anger out on the next film, regardless of what it would have been. Just if it was good or bad, it doesn't matter. People weren't going to go see it. So the release order between the two, anthology films really made a difference. Battlefront 2015 should have been merged with a sequel like Overwatch did. When Battlefront 2 came out, the decision was made to keep Battlefront 2015 open. And I think it was a bad decision, because when you look at all the content that game has, they should have merged it with the sequel to have a much bigger game. Because look at the player base in 2015. There's no one playing. And with the paid DLC, there's basically no one playing some of those DLCs. Even though I never played that game, I've seen videos and how dead that game is. And I know, like I said, it's a hot take for me to say that, but 2015 should have been closed down when Battlefront 2 started up, when it launched in November of 2017. It should have been closed down. All the content, all the heroes, all the reinforcements in that game should have been merged into the sequel to make a much bigger game. It would make sense to just take everything from Battlefront 2015 and just plop it into the sequel. Now, excluding maps and game modes just for differentiating itself, unless it's under DICE that wanted to add those game modes. Because I know they did add a couple maps from the first game into the sequel, which is fine. But I did hear that it takes longer for those maps from Battlefront 2015 to be put into a sequel, because you have to update the graphics and all type of stuff. And just removing 2015 entirely actually takes a player base and moves it to the sequel, so more people would actually be playing it. Henceforth, in 2023, when there is no active Star Wars game, there'll be more people playing the multiplayer game, which is Battlefront 2, now more than ever. There wouldn't be a decision of, should I play 2015 or Battlefront 2? So the decision to close down 2015 when Battlefront 2 opened would be such a great idea. My last hot take, which is the hottest hot take that I think I'm going to say, and you're all going to hate it, but George Lucas, yes, that George Lucas, made the greatest decision ever by selling Star Wars to Disney. I know, there is a dislikes, but hear me out. If George Lucas kept Star Wars, what would he have done with it? Make another trilogy? Would that trilogy have been good? I know that's a silly thing to ask, of course it would have been good, but what if it wasn't? George Lucas has a track record of making things that aren't well received by the general public. When you look at their prequel trilogy, yeah, it has its fans, and it has a cult following, but to the casual audience, they're not really going to be rewatching it, because, well, they're not good films. Yes, they're good Star Wars films, but they're not good films. So that probably would have been the same way of George Lucas' sequel trilogy. It probably would have been very convoluted, very just too much to handle for a casual audience, and it would have made a lot of fans upset, because he would have changed something that would have upset people. When we look at Star Wars today, yes, it isn't really in a good position, but it still is active, more active than when George Lucas had it, because everything that happened in the franchise was based off of him. Now with Lucasfilm, there's all sorts of shows coming out, there's video games coming out, there's books coming out, all in the same canon, all in the same timeline. Now, yeah, you can argue it's not really perfect, and it's not supposed to be, but you can pick and choose what you want to watch. You can hate and like what you want. There is no hating one guy anymore if you don't like something. You can hate individual people now. Everyone's working on their own thing. Everyone has their own version of Star Wars. What I'm trying to say is, George Lucas selling Star Wars was the greatest idea he's ever had, because he's not going to be living forever. He's eventually gonna pass away, and if he would have kept Star Wars, then the franchise would have just been dormant, or his children would have had to take over, and who knows how that would have went. And having a company now take over Star Wars with George Lucas still alive to talk to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, George Lucas can actually interfere and talk to them to make decisions, and other directors can go to him for help. I think it's a good deal. So that's my hot take. like I said, you're not supposed to agree with all of it. It's supposed to be unpopular opinions. You're supposed to hate it. That's the point. But knowing the Star Wars fan base, they probably would hate it either way because, you know, we just hate everything when it comes to the franchise. But those are my hot takes. I know a lot of people have their own different hot takes because everyone has their own opinion on what should and shouldn't be, which is fine. I think it's good once in a while to express your hot takes, but to not hate someone for their hot take because it's just an opinion and not really meant to be taken seriously. They're just something that I thought of one day because I'm like, I kind of have this opinion, but those are my feelings about certain things. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? 'Cause I'm going to go now. Hit the like button, subscribe, and go, and so goodbye, everyone.